This episode is sponsored by 511, a company that I've used for well over a decade and continue to use to this day. And 511 is offering you guys, the audience of the Behind the Shield podcast, a discount on every purchase you make with them. Before we get to that code, I want to highlight a couple of products that, again, I personally use today. One of the most impressive products they just released is their Rush Backpack 2.0. Now, for many of you, whether you're going to the fire station, the police station, whether you're traveling with your family, whether you're taking training courses, we have to fly, we have to drive, we have to take trains. And I have to say, I own multiple backpacks, many of 511's different ones, but as far as a day pack, this one was the most impressive. There are so many different compartments. The way it sits on your back is incredibly comfortable. If you are a concealed carry person, there's also a spot for a weapon. So they've thought of multiple things that a man or woman would have to do on a daily basis. That is in addition to all of the products that I talk about a lot. Their uniforms, fit for men or fit for women in the first responder professions. The footwear that they offer, whether it's the Norris sneaker or the Atlas system that is designed for foot health and therefore knees and back and hips and shoulders and neck. As a civilian, I live in a lot of their clothes as well. Their jeans stretch. You can actually squat down in them. We live in Florida here, so I wear a lot of their shorts, which again, very lightweight material. You can get it wet and it will dry almost immediately. And then moving to the fitness and tactical space, I used to have just a regular weight vest. Recently, I switched to a 511 vest and actually bought ballistic plates as well. My thinking was simply, if I'm going to have a vest, why not have one that protects me as well? And that TAC vest is trusted by law enforcement all around the country. So I mentioned they were going to offer you a discount code. So if you go to 511tactical.com and enter the code SHIELD15, SHIELD15, you will get 15% off, not just that one purchase, but every time you visit their store. And if you want to learn more about 511, their mission, their products, then listen to episode 338 of the Behind the Shield podcast with the CEO and founder, Francisco Morales. This episode is brought to you by Thorne, the industry leader in nutritional solutions. Now, Thorne is actually trusted by 8 U.S. national teams and championship teams in the NFL, NBA, and Major League, as well as recently becoming the official sports performance nutrition partner of the UFC. So when it comes to supplements, the tactical athlete space and the athletic space need two things. We need efficacy, meaning the products do what they say they're going to do on the label, and then we need to trust the fact that we are not going to fail either athletic drug tests or work-related drug tests. Now, Thorne has actually been around since the 1980s, where they were used by physicians and hospitals for nutritional supplements for the patients. They were so successful that athletic teams and even special operations teams reached out to them and they started supplying them as well. Very recently, they actually opened their doors to the general public. Now, what sets Thorne apart is they manufacture their own products in a state-of-the-art NSF-certified facility in South Carolina. They use only the purest possible ingredients formulated with no stearates or arbitrary fillers in the cleanest manufacturing process. Most of you listening come from a profession where it can take its toll physically and mentally, and many of us are not able to bolster our nutrition purely with the food that we eat. And that's where supplementation comes in. So if you're ready to maximize your health and performance, visit thorne.com, thorne.com. Take a short product quiz to be paired up with the perfect health and fitness supplements. And for you, the audience, if you use the code BTS10, Behind the Shield 10, BTS10, you will get 10% off your first order. And if you want to learn even more about Thorne, go to episode 323 of Behind the Shield podcast, and you will hear my interview with Wes Barnett and Joel Totoro from Thorne. Welcome to the Behind the Shield podcast. As always, my name's James Gearing, and this week it is my absolute honor to welcome on the show active duty firefighter and former MMA champion Eddie Wineland. So we discuss a host of topics, from his journey into martial arts, almost losing his brother in a house fire, the fighter's mindset, firefighter fitness, mental health, sleep, and so much more. Now, before we get to this incredible conversation, as I say every week, please just take a moment, go to whichever app you listen to this on, subscribe to the show, leave feedback. I do love reading your feedback, and leave a rating. Every single 5-star rating truly does elevate this podcast, therefore making it easier for others to find. And this is a free library of over 700 episodes now. So all I ask in return is that you help share these incredible men and women's stories so I can get them to every single person on planet Earth who needs to hear them. So with that being said, I introduce to you Eddie Wineland. Enjoy. Well, Eddie, I want to start by saying thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Behind the Shield podcast today.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. Absolutely.
So where on planet Earth are we finding you today?
I am actually in my house, in my Four Seasons room. As you can see, it's kind of rustic-y. We got our fish mounts. There's more to become, but as the boys decide to reel in some big fish, we're getting them mounted. But it's kind of a rustic room, just in the back room of our house.
Brilliant. Well, I would have to start at the very beginning, because I know you weren't born in Indiana. So Tell me where you were born and tell me a little bit about your family dynamic, what your parents did and how many siblings.
Okay. Yeah. So the way my parents met and where I was born is kind of a funny story, I guess. I was born in Harris County, Texas, Houston. And my parents, they actually met on the way down to Houston. So my dad was down to Houston, or on his way down to Houston with a buddy of his, and my mom with a girlfriend of hers. And my dad and my mom didn't know each other at that point, obviously, but they actually passed each other on the highway. And my dad, who knew the girl that was with my mom, saw them and started pointing out to my buddy, you need to pass them. So they go blowing by this car that has my mom and a mutual friend in the car. And as they pass this car, my dad's got his ass hanging out the window.
So she was struck by his brown eye?
Struck by the brown eye. Yep. Yeah. So that would be probably the first time my mom ever saw my dad was with his ass hanging out the car window going down an interstate headed to Houston. So I believe they pulled over at some point. Hey, what are you doing? We're going to Houston. Well, what do you know? Us too. So I think the rest is all kind of history.
Beautiful. That's an interesting love at first sight story. It was the wrong end.
Right. Or the right end. I don't know. Who knows? Depends on what you're into, I guess.
So what about profession at that time, or as they started progressing through their adult life? What were they doing career-wise?
My dad, that's what he was going down there for, was going down there for work. I think he was doing trailer repair at the time, or construction. I mean, he kind of bounced around a little bit, and then my mom, I'm not 100% certain what she was doing. I think they were just going down to Houston to have a good time, back in the 70s, late 70s, as they like to do. They like to party, they like to drink, they like to just have a good time. So I think they were just down there having a good time and looking for work.
Now, Wineland, the name, what is the kind of European descent, if anything?
Wineland, I believe, is German. So I got German and Irish. On my mom's side was Galbraith. So my mom is actually Winecoff and Galbraith. And then on my father's side is Wineland and Brooks. So there's some German, there's some Irish. I actually had one of those 23andMe's, but because I've been struck in the head so many times, I can't exactly remember what it was. But I know I had basically Cro-Magnon gene in my. They said it was like 2% of the population has a Cro-Magnon caveman gene, and I just so happen to have it.
So you're related to Clay Guida as well, then. Exactly.
There you go. There's a reason. There's a reason we do what we do, and why we're so dumb. It's just smash. Yeah. So yeah, there was like Eastern European. There was all kinds of different stuff in there, and I don't know how accurate that stuff is, but I know Wineland, Winecoff. There's German there. There's Irish with Galbraith and all the other stuff.
Now, what about in your extended family? Are there fighters, or are there also first responders or firefighters in any of your lineage?
So, like it's somewhere, but it's been known that none of us were going to back down from a fight.
All right. Well, speaking of combat arts, then walk me through your journey into wrestling and or any other martial arts at the school age.
Sure. Yeah. So I started wrestling at 6, and it kind of started because, well, just like any other parent does, we're going to bounce our kid around. Okay, let's play basketball. Okay, let's play soccer. Okay, let's try t-ball. Okay, let's try this. Let's try that. I didn't like the ball and stick sports. I not that I wasn't good at them, but it didn't appeal to me, so I didn't apply myself. I didn't really like it that much. So they put me into wrestling, and I specifically remember watching like WWF and all that stuff back then. So I specifically remember asking my mom on the way to my first practice if she thought that, oh, well, do you think there's going to be tag teams? And I thought it was going to be like some WWF stuff. It's like, I'm going to DDT this guy and blah, 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 blah. And I quickly realized that wasn't the case. I got my ass handed to me the first couple of times, but once I realized what was going on, that was my click. That was my click. Let's get in there. Let's roughhouse. Let's get rowdy. And I like to test myself against somebody else. So all the other ball sports, they required 1, and this one to me required 2. You're going in there 1-on-1. And it's a combat. We're not kicking a ball to each other. We're going to see who the tougher guy is here. So I kind of gravitated towards that. I wasn't very consistent in wrestling from 6 all the way on. I kind of bounced around here and there. I don't know if it was my parents working, or maybe I just wasn't as interested. I don't know. But I kind of off and on from 6, and then about middle school, I picked it up again. So 6th grade all the way through high school, I wrestled. So that was kind of the extent of it. That was always just kind of my thing. I didn't like the ball sports.
Well, it's an interesting contrast. I played both. I did martial arts most of my life, never to the level that you did. But I had that constant humbling. I've talked about this before, where I won national titles in Taekwondo and then entered a kickboxing gym and got murdered, and then kind of got okay at that, and then went to jiu-jitsu and got murdered again. I'm like, fuck. So I was definitely a weekend warrior and a punch bag for some very good fighters, Ian McCall and some of the other people that you probably were around in your area.
Ian.
Yeah,
Ian's a great dude.
Yeah, no, he was monster in the gym.
Yes,
but you have the team sports as well, and it's an interesting kind of mix, because when you fight for a team in martial arts, yes, you are part of a team. Yes, your win matters, but as you said, you are 100% accountable for your performance on the mat. Versus, you might be a very, very good player in a team of 11 on the football pitch, but the dynamic of the rest of the team, or maybe you're the weak link, you can let down an entire team that way. So I found those two contrasts very interesting.
That's my take on it, and that's why I love it. The only one responsible for your victory is you. The only one responsible for your loss is you. If you lose, there is no pointing fingers. The finger that's being pointed is directly at you, because it's on you. Now, are you helping your team to win that match? Yes, because there's team points involved at least in wrestling. So wrestling, there are team points involved. Your win matters, but if you lose, it's on you. Nobody else out there we can't pull strings, and we're not playing puppet master out there. There's not any other bodies out there to help you. It's one-on-one there. And that to me that's the ultimate test. And that's the ultimate, like I said, I've gravitated towards that. I've always wanted to test myself, and I want to see who the better person is.
Well, I think the other side of the combat sports is when you lose in football, for example. I'm talking about, real football.
I would say, football or soccer. Hold on here.
Football with your feet. Football.
Right. Okay. Real football. I understand.
Your ego might get wounded, but that's about it. But when you lose in jiu-jitsu, when you lose in Muay Thai, it fucking hurts. So I think there's another, level of fear in those kind of sports that a lot of, other sports, as amazing as athletes are, never understand that the potential of being knocked out or choked unconscious is a lot more real than, as you said, if your ultimate goal is to put a football in the net.
But it's completely a different breed of people, because you are willingly going to lock yourself in a cage. with you and two other people. One of those persons being a referee, so he's going to do nothing. The other guy, he's trying to take your freaking head off. So to willingly get in there and understand, okay, I may split my forehead open, I may break an arm, I may get knocked unconscious, I could break my nose, I could break my hand, I could bust my jaw. The consequences there are real versus getting kicked in the face with a soccer ball. Okay, yeah, it's going to sting, but for how long? A broken jaw is months of pain. You get kicked in the face with a soccer ball. Depending on what level of pussy you are, you could either shake it off or you might fall down and cry about it. All depends,
Yeah, it's an interesting contrast at the moment because I love the UFC, but then I'm watching the World Cup too. And, some of and it's drama. It's just to try and, sell the penalty. But it is quite funny that, a mere touch in the face with a hand.
They are all guilty of it. Basketball, baseball so much. You get hit with a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, I'm sure that hurts. But they're all guilty of it. Soccer being the biggest one, I think.
Yeah, but I think they're clamping down on it, which is good to see. There's a lot less of that now. It was really bad about 8 years ago.
They wouldn't even get touched, and
yeah, there was I forget his name, but there's a video creator, and it was one guy that got tackled, and this dude rolled. Literally 6 or 7 times. It was hilarious. But then this guy kind of exactly, and then he kind of superimposed him going through space and going through the ocean, and it was hilarious. Anyway, well, back to your wrestling. We'll get into obviously the MMA evolution, but when you were wrestling, you obviously got to a certain level. What was it that was allowing you to be somewhat successful when some of the other kids that you were training alongside maybe weren't?
So if we're being 100% honest, my wrestling career was not successful. Was not. And again, I'm the only one to blame because I didn't apply myself. Like any other high school kid, it was just kind of, go here, I'm here, but I want to be there, but I want to do this. I didn't really apply myself as hard as I could. I still say to this day, if I could go back to high school with the mentality that I have now, it'd be a whole different animal. Because the mentality that I have now, obviously, as a 38-year-old man, is different than a 16-year-old kid. As a 16-year-old kid, you got different things on your mind. You want to hang out with your buddies. All kinds of different things going on. Rather than I want to get in there and beat people up. I like to test myself, but I didn't apply myself as much as I should have. Truth be told, I never made it out of, I don't know how familiar you are with high school wrestling, but you have your conference, then you go sectionals, so after conference, everybody makes it to sectionals, but after the sectionals, you have to qualify for regionals, you have to qualify for semi-state, you have to qualify for state. So you have to be within the top like 4, I think, in your bracket to make it out of each tournament. I never made it out of sectionals. Even as a senior, I never made it out of sectionals. Again, didn't apply myself. I still to this day, I go back into the room and I wrestle with the kids just because it's fun for me. It's fun for me. It's fun for them. Obviously my hometown, Chesterton, everybody, Eddie Wineland's in the room. I don't see it like that, but they see it like that. So not only is it good for me, it's good for them that testing themselves against a professional athlete, to show them that the mentality that I didn't have, don't worry about who's standing in front of you. It doesn't matter who's standing in front of you. Just blow right through them. Whip their ass no matter who it is. That was my biggest thing, was my mentality. Being a freshman, they didn't have anybody to fill the smallest spot. So being a freshman, I came in and started wrestling varsity. My 8th grade year, I think I was like 17-2 or 17-0 with 14 pins. So, of course, I'm going into my freshman year thinking, all right, I'm going to smash these guys. I'm pretty sure my freshman year, I got pinned more times than I won my 8th grade year. Because I'm going in, wrestling seniors, and this kid's got a tattoo. This kid, I got in my own head. So the best thing that I can do for these kids and my boys is to try and set their mentality straight. Don't worry about the person standing in front of you. Believe in yourself. Believe in what you've done, and just go out there and destroy this dude. If you go out there and you give it 100% and try absolutely as hard as you can and still come up short, what else are you going to do? There's absolutely nothing you can do other than go back in the room and continue to work. So that's the biggest thing that I can do is try to give them that side.
Well, it's an interesting perspective. I wrote a book a couple of years ago. One of the chapters, I told the story of when I first started testing after the fire academy, and these two bright orange bodybuilders were strutting around like, cockerels in a farmyard. And I was like,
Oompa-loompas.
Yeah. And I was like, well, shit, they must be amazing. And this is my naive, brand new fire recruit eyeballs. And then I watched them proceed to begin this physical test that we were all getting ready to do, which was basically like the combat challenge, pretty much. And both of them tapped out on the third story, carrying the empty hose line. Sure. And I was like, well, shit. And it kind of brought me back to when I used to fight. Sometimes I had already told myself how good that person must be across from me. Because like you said, they've got a granite jaw or tattoos or, whatever it is.
Yep.
And that mind game is terrible because you can absolutely lose the fight or maybe be too meek to step up for a job position because you've told yourself that lie. So what has been the evolution of that from that freshman wrestler to, fighting some of the best MMA fighters on the planet? How did you start dealing with that mental kind of imposter syndrome that so many of us suffer from?
Right. I quickly realized and size doesn't matter. I started training, and when I first started training, it was with Keith and Justin Wisniewski at Wineland Ballet Tudo. They used to call them the Polish Connection. They were two brothers, and you'd look at them and you wouldn't think nothing of them. But boy, don't mess with them because they're gonna flip your shit. I promise. When I first started training with them, it was Keith looked at me and he said, if you really get serious about this and you really want to fight, I feel like we can make you one of the best in the world. Yeah, come on. 18-year-old kid from Chesterton. My wrestling sucks. I like the backyard box, and that was about it. You tell me I'm going to be one of the best fighters in the world. I don't think so. But I quickly realized that through the constant training and the consistency, again, that's what I'm trying to tell these kids now is that it's consistency, hard work or what was it? Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work, right? That's the biggest thing. Hard work and consistency being in there. So got a little bit better, learned how to move my body. I kind of learned, as you learn, you understand that the size really doesn't matter. Okay, he's got big muscles, big deal. You see all the memes now where this big muscly bodybuilder getting choked out, and it says the moment you realize your max bench press doesn't mean shit. That's 100%. My strength and conditioning coach, Jason, he's at Applied Strength and Conditioning. He's a 260-pound dude. And, I wrestle around with him and I get on top of him and he can't move me. Here's a guy who can pick up 600 pounds off the ground, but he can't move a 150-pound guy because I understand body mechanics and how it works. That's just what he said. It's a very humbling experience to wrestle with a guy that's half your size and realize there's not a damn thing you can do about it. There is nothing you're going to do about it because that small dude there, he understands what he's doing. He's going to fuck you up. There was another dude in the gym that he kept saying, I could take you. I could beat you. He's a big dude, 260 pounds. And he got to a double underhook on me, and I started pushing on his face. I dug my double unders. He tried to he picked me up off the ground. I just got wide. He couldn't put me down. 30 seconds goes by and he lets go. He goes, oh, okay. I said, whoa, wait a minute, motherfucker. It's my turn now. You couldn't put me down in the first 30 seconds. So I just knee tapped him, put him straight to his butt. And he stood up. He goes, all right, well, I believe you now. What do you mean you believe me? You'd whip my ass. Well, no shit. That's what I've been trying to tell you, Ross. I would whip your ass. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to kick your ass. So it's a humbling experience for the big dude, but it's also the little guys. I look at these people as a challenge. Can I do this? I don't know. I don't know if I can. I think I can, but I'm going to try. I'm either going to get beat or I'm going to beat them. And that's the way I've looked at it is one of two things is going to happen. And it sounds kind of funny, but when you tell somebody one of two things is going to happen, I'm going to win or I'm going to lose. I mean, that's the truth. That's the truth. I'm confident that I'm going to win, but the reality that I could lose is there. It's a combat sport. It's one shot, and you're throttled on the floor. So just getting past that mental hump of seeing the big muscles and okay, well, this guy's done this guy's done that. Right early on in my fighting career, when I fought Antonio Banuelos, I watched a lot of his highlights, and it was like, man, this guy's really good. I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to try it. Just go and do it. Just try. You don't know if you don't try. Right? When I fought Will Campazano, and I remember watching him fight Ox Wheeler, his previous fight. And that dude just nonstop from start to finish, 15 minutes. Bah, 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 bah. The output was insane. It says, man, I don't know how I'm going to beat this guy. This guy's in amazing shape, and I don't know what I'm going to do, but just go do it. Just go do it, because you don't know. So after the first 5 minutes, I remember speaking with him afterwards. Great dude, by the way, Will. He's a super nice guy. But after talking to him, so he said, I almost didn't come off the stool after the first round, because that constant forward pressure. It's a lot different fighting under pressure, being the one pressured versus the one giving the pressure. When you're giving pressure and the guy's like, shit, I don't know what to do. I hit him with the kitchen sink and he's still coming forward. That drains your gas tank. And that drains your mentality. And that's, the thing I wanted to tell you was fighting's physical. Absolutely. It's physical. It's a physical sport. Firefighting is a physical thing. All sports are physical, but the fight is won mentally. 90% the fight is mental, 10% physical, at least in my opinion. If I can beat you mentally, I know I can beat you physically, because you've already beat yourself. How hard is it to beat somebody who's already beaten themselves? It's pretty easy. But like I said, just realizing that the size doesn't matter. Just go try it. You're not going to know if you don't try. So that was the biggest thing for me was I'm pretty confident in myself. I don't know 100% that I'm gonna make it, but I'm gonna try. Because if I don't try, I'm for sure not gonna know. If I do try, well, at least I can say, hey, I gave it everything. It didn't work. So at that point, it's either get back into the gym and keep working, or move on to the next thing.
So I want to get into kind of the progression of MMA and then obviously the fire service as well. But before we do, there was a very pivotal moment that happened to your brother. Obviously, it's very pertinent, seeing as we're both firefighters as well. I think the burn injured, boys and girls, men and women of the world, probably is some of the most horrendous injuries that a human can endure. And then the perpetual
would not wish
surgeries.
That on anybody. Would not wish that not on my worst enemy.
So if you wouldn't mind, kind of walk me through that day, because I know there was an element of guilt initially from yourself as well, and then we'll kind of walk through from there.
Sure. So back, what was that? When he got hurt, it was I wanted to go fishing. So a buddy and me, we were walking down the street with our fishing poles, our tackle box, and my dad was coming home from work in his pickup truck, and he saw us walking down the street, stopped, obviously. Hey, what are you guys doing? Well, we're going fishing right down the road. He goes, I'll jump in the back of the truck. I'll take you. Okay, so we jumped in the back of the truck, and he took us to the lake, and off fishing we went. And as he left the lake to go back home, he said he was following fire trucks. There was fire trucks. They were pulling out because the lake was actually right around the corner from the fire department. So as he pulled out of the lake, fire trucks were pulling out, and he's following them, and he keeps following them. Okay, they're turning left. Oh, okay, I got to go left. Oh, they're turning right. Oh, I got to go right. Okay, they're heading down there. He said, no, wait a minute. They stopped, they stopped at our house. And my brother was supposed to be at the house behind our house. Well, he must have got bored and decided he didn't want to be there no more, and he ended up coming home. And when he came home, he's a motorhead. He was into anything with a motor, and he must have tried to fill his bubble lawnmower with some gasoline. And then when the flame from the hot water heater ignited the hot water heater, that gasoline that was on the floor just and he was down in the basement at the time. And the guilt side of it was every time my dad would come home from work, he would come running, dad, like any little kid, oh, dad's home. Well, my thought was if we wouldn't have been, well, I say wouldn't have been going fishing, but if we wouldn't have had him give us a ride, he would have been home in time. Corey would have been upstairs. Even if the house caught on fire, everybody would have been out. So he was 98% of his body, second and third degree burns. My mom said the only reason she heard faint little screams, and she heard the screams, she came down the stairs and saw just a wall of fire. She said she saw a wall of fire, and she started calling out to him, and she said all she could see through the flames was just this little black silhouette walking towards her. So it gives me goosebumps thinking about what it would be to see that, to see your own child walking through a wall of flames. That, yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know. It happened for a reason. What the reason is, I don't know. Couldn't tell you. I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss of words on that one.
And he was two and a half when this happened.
He was 2.5, yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind, that is such a catastrophic injury. I had a dude walk out of a house fire on fire. Bizarre story, because anatomically he should have been toast, absolutely. And then he was talking to us, and we're like, this doesn't make any sense. His airways all burnt out. He's got no tongue. He's got no nose. And so I'm not a deeply organized religious person, but I am spiritual. The only way to describe that particular patient was his soul didn't know his body was dead. The only way from a medical point of view. So to think of 98% burns on a 2.5-year-old, again, give me some of the cliff notes on your brother's recovery, because that must have just been devastating for you, for his parents, for everyone.
Yeah, it was. He was, if I'm not mistaken, they took the ambulance, and the ambulance went. They took him from ambulance to Interstate 94, and I believe they actually landed the helicopter right on 94. They shut down the highway, landed the helicopter, lifted him to the University of Chicago. And if I'm not mistaken, he was clinically dead, I believe, 4 times in between our house and the University of Chicago. It was, hey, you're dead. Wait, no, you're not. Hey, you're dead. Wait, no, you're not. Hey, you're dead. Wait, no, you're not. And they got him to the University of Chicago. And the doctors, as you could imagine, said, if he makes it through the night, it'll be a miracle. Unfortunately, we're sorry. There's not a whole lot we can do for him other than the best we can do. We can do the best that we can do, but don't expect him to be here in the morning. And that was 1996, I believe. So here we are, 2022. He's a knucklehead, don't get me wrong, but he's still here. There was something there that said, no, you're not going.
It's amazing. It is a miracle. It truly is. There's the only way to describe it, having seen, the devastation by fire on a human body personally.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's what it does to the body to realize 98% of second and third degree burns. That it's not scientifically, I don't know how that's possible.
Now, what about the journey he's been through? The surgeries, some of the deficits. What's he been left with after that?
Nonstop surgery. I couldn't tell you. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of surgeries. I don't want to say thousands because I'm not for sure, but if it's not, it very well could be close. The surgeries, the skin grafts, the releases, because as you get skin grafts, obviously that skin graft doesn't grow as you grow. So you're growing and everything's stretching and everything would just pull so tight, and then you'd have to go and they would release it. It just open up like a big axe wound, and then they throw another skin graft on there. And he didn't have a lot of places to graft skin from, because a lot of his, they tried the, I believe they grew it in a petri dish. They tried giving, I don't know if it was cadaver skin, and I believe he rejected it. So they basically had to scavenge any little bits of skin that would actually regenerate itself. They had to scavenge off of his body that they, the 2% that wasn't touched. They had to scavenge to do his skin grafts. So I mean, even still to this day, it's just a rough go. He has problems with his legs. He had to actually have his, from his knee down, had to have it amputated. So now he's not only burned 98% of his body, he's got a prosthetic. So, it's been a rough go nonetheless.
Well, I think it's important to hear those stories. I've got a friend, Ryan Parrott, who started a nonprofit called Sons of the Flag, and he saw a need for the burn injured to be able to be connected with the best trauma surgeons in the planet. And so he helps veterans and first responders usually. And I have one of the guys, Shay Askew, who's a high-level triathlete, was really badly burned. To summarize, I think there were bees that came out, a neighbor threw gasoline on the bees, and it hit him as well, and it ignited, and you can imagine the result. So he has prosthetic ears, and again, like you said, the lack of mobility affects, the way he can turn his head. Can he hear? Can he chew? All these things. So, when we are physically and mentally preparing for a life in the fire service and setting that bar high, sometimes we need to be reminded by stories like your brother of what, those seconds may factor into this child having a life that you just described.
Absolutely. And it's like you said, seconds. We're not talking minutes. It's seconds. I don't know what it may still be the same. I'm not sure, but with all the synthetics and everything that are in furniture and just everything in the house, all the synthetics, the last I remembered was fire doubles every 30 seconds. So you start with a fire this big, in 5 minutes, the whole room is gone. So in another 30 seconds, that room becomes half of the house. In another 30 seconds, that half of the house becomes the whole house. So you're not just increasing by this much every time. No, you're going from here to here to here to the whole house. It's literally seconds, not minutes. And that's obviously why it's just so important that we're constantly training and trying to get the heck out of the house before their house is gone. Get out and get there as fast as we can.
Absolutely. Well, in so many of these conversations, when I've asked the early life stories, they're more often than not in our profession are elements of trauma, whether it's, seeing your brother go through what you've been through, all kinds of a whole spectrum of traumas. And I think more often than not, whether consciously or subconsciously, it drives us towards certain paths. When you look back, whether it was the combat sports and or firefighting, were there any elements of that incident or other parts of your childhood that you think drove you into the professions that you ended up in?
No, I mean, as far as like the fighting side of things, when I graduated high school, obviously I wrestled, and for whatever reason, outside of high school, I'm kind of angry all the time. I felt like I needed to fight everybody. Well, this guy looked at me wrong. Fuck this guy. I'm trying to fight him, but I never really wanted to fight people. It was kind of like, I need to fight you. I don't know why, but I need to fight you. And, luckily I never got into any real altercations. I never really acted on those feelings. So a buddy of mine who had been fighting since it was like our sophomore year in high school, he was the one who actually said, hey, high school's over, wrestling's over. You're not wrestling in college. I went to like a community college here. They didn't have any wrestling team, this, that. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I was working outside of the steel mills with my dad. I didn't have any real idea of where I was going or what I was doing. So my buddy just said, hey, why don't you come try this? You just come in here and train tonight. So I went in and trained with him that night, and we put the boxing gloves on, and I got busted in the nose and just leaked like a stuck pig. I mean, my shirt was completely soaked in blood and this and that. And we got done training. He goes, "What do you think?" I said, "This is fucking awesome. I love it. I'll be back tomorrow." So again, it just goes back to being a different breed of people. Here I'm leaking blood all over my clothes, and I got to keep going. But to the fire service side of things, I didn't grow up aspiring to be a firefighter. Even after my brother was hurt, it wasn't, this is what I need to do. There was no real calling. My grandfather, he was part of a volunteer fire service. I know there's I don't know that there's professional side of it, but I know there's volunteer service in our family. My cousin's actually Liberty Township volunteers, their fire chief. So there is fire service in our family. But again, another buddy of mine who was fighting, he got hired on in the City of LaPorte Fire Department. And he had said, "Hey, we're hiring, why don't you come try out?" Okay, cool. So I went and tried out. And, the more you think about it, I like to think of myself as a good person. I like to try and help people. I like to do the right, what I think is the right thing. Try not to be a dickhead, but it doesn't always. Sometimes you have to be a dickhead, I guess. But the more you think about it, if I could help somebody like my brother, okay, they're trapped in a house fire, if I can get to them before they have to go through what my brother went through. Thank God, in 14 years of service, I haven't had to run a call like that, and I would be completely happy going my entire career without having to run a call like that. But to think that I can potentially affect someone's life by doing that for the better, it just brings a sense of it just makes me happy. It makes me happy to help people. I want to see other people happy. I want to see other people I like that feeling. I like that feeling that I get knowing that somebody is happy because of something that we did, or that somebody is going to survive because of something that we did. So I tried, back to making a short story long. I tried out for the fire department, and I got hired on. I think I got hired on, and again, that was another reason why I was able to compete at such a high level of MMA, was because of their schedule. So their schedule, I had then we do a funny schedule rather than a 24-48. It's a 1 on, 1 off, 1 on, 1 off, 1 on, 4 off. So every 5 days we get basically a small vacation. And I don't know if you guys get Kelly days or furlough days or anything like that, but every 14th working day, we just basically get a free day off. So if you're on the beginning or the tail end of your shift, you'll work 1, off 1, work 1, off 6, or vice versa, or you'll work 1, off 3, work 1, off 4. So the schedule was just perfect for what I was doing. So there was never any real aspirations to be a firefighter until I got hired on, and it was like, man, this is pretty cool. I really like this. This is me. I could see me retiring from this.
Now, going back to what you said about the anger, because, you could probably psychoanalyze that some of that was related to, what happened with your brother, or maybe some of the guilt that you carried initially. I have observed in myself that, there's a lot of compounding elements that make us more and more, or challenge my mental health as we progress through a career, sleep deprivation and so many other areas. But I was so calm and chill after Muay Thai, after Jiu-Jitsu. People would cut me up and I'd be like, whatever, dude, just let it go. Whereas before I was like screaming at them. Did you find as you got into the MMA training that focused some of that aggression and took it away from everyday life?
100%. I mean, it was like almost instant. That first night, it was like, what am I mad about? What do I have to be angry about? Now it's in order to get me riled up, you could say, do whatever you want to me. Don't fuck with my family. My boys, my wife, my mom, my dad, don't mess with my family. You mess with me all you want. I don't give a shit. But you start messing with family, then we got issues. But there's no point. There's no point to be upset about stupid, petty little stuff. It's I heard something the other day, and I'm probably going to butcher it really bad, but somebody says something bad or calls you names or whatever, and you get all worked up, get fired up about it. It's, dude, these are just words. They're literally vibrations that go in this ear and come out this ear. And how you perceive that and how you let that affect you is up to you. They're literally words. It's a vibration. So if you want to let that irritate you, that's on you. It does absolutely nothing to you physically, emotionally, unless you let it. So just why? There's no point in getting worked up.
Well, I would argue that's probably behind why we're seeing it so easy to divide people at the moment. I mean, the last 2 years, and I want to get to actually a COVID topic as we get in a little bit further, because you had a fight at an interesting time with Sean O'Malley. So, but you take away physical education, you take away an environment that encourages physical education. Now you add a poor diet, you add more stress. To me, you can't get in that relaxed phase, that post-coital or post-fightal phase that you have after you leave the gym, where you're like, okay, I've got all that shit out now. And that is why I think people are so damn triggered at the moment. And not everyone, but it seems to be very, very easy to get people angry. And I would argue it's because they physically do not have an outlet. And I've talked to people in the UK. We don't have that high level of performance in most schools and college level sports. We just don't, unless you're an elite football player or rugby player. But what you'll see is longevity in sports, in general. So people will keep playing in their 20s, 30s, 40s and beyond. And what I see in America is this elite performance, and then this massive drop off with a whole bunch of Uncle Rico stories about how you were going to be the next NFL star.
I drove pigskin over a quarter mile.
but it's a sad, truth, because now you don't see, and it reflects in society. I mean, it's horrible. I mean this from a place of compassion and kindness. It breaks my heart that we have people that were gifted this miracle, the human body, and it's being slowly broken down, which is then magnifying the stress within themselves and destroying relationships rather than building them.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, honestly. I think a big one is social media. I think a big one is the news outlets. I just think the problem is people are too busy. They're doing this, they're too busy doing this. They're too busy eating fast food. Like you said, diet to me is a huge one. I notice a big difference eating whole foods versus eating shit foods. I read this thing about, and I don't know if there's any truth to it because I haven't dug into it, but if you look at like TikTok, TikTok's, I believe, is a Chinese-owned company. So the algorithms for their TikToks, the Chinese children, their algorithms are other children and other people being successful and doing big things in life, versus you look at the algorithms for our American children or American people, they're watching big booty bitches shake their ass all over the screen, So they're getting accustomed. Oh, I want to keep watching that. I want to keep watching that. Whereas these Chinese kids, that's why they're becoming so successful, is because they're watching all these people do good things. And they get tied into that, I believe. They get tied into that. And, okay, well, all I got to do is be an influencer. All I got to do is take a bunch of funny videos, and they're making it. It just the social media and the media outlets are. It's not good. It's not good for the human to sit there 8 hours a day and just do this and do this and do this and do this. Because what else are they doing? They're doing nothing productive. They're not eating right. They're not exercising. They're just not getting out. Get out and get out in the sun. Get out in I don't want to sound like a hippy dippy, but take your shoes off and walk in the grass. Become grounded. I think that's huge. I think that's huge of good diets and good habits.
Yeah, 100%. Even with the grounding, I've trained barefoot for years, within reason.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, certain things like double unders with a wire rope, they're better with shoes. but but yeah, overall, I'm barefoot most of the time, and I agree 100%. And that's what's so sad. And like I said, I'd love to visit the fighters' experience during COVID, but COVID in general, and I've talked about this all the time. And the reason why I revisit it is because the lessons weren't learned. But if you look at what was told to the average person, and you're an athlete, we're both tactical athletes, so we have a good understanding of exercise, nutrition, etc. But the average person who maybe didn't were told, stay inside, don't be around your family and friends. The gyms are closed, the beaches and parks are closed, but we can send alcohol and fast food to your house. We got you, bro, while you watch Tiger King. You can't blame the average person who's not educated in this area. They weren't taught well in school. They're not taught well on television. We've created an environment that sets them up for success rather than failure. I got that backwards. Failure rather than success.
Right. If you can't see through all of those signs that you just said, here, we'll give you booze and fast food, and you can watch these stupid shows, but don't go exercise. Don't do what's healthy for you. If you can't see through that, I'm sorry, but you got bigger problems. You got bigger problems. I rode the pole 360 on the whole COVID thing. It started out as, okay, this is kind of stupid, to, okay, maybe it's kind of serious, to, this is stupid. This is just dumb. For some people I get it. For some people I understand, but for those people, like you said, get out and move. Get out and move. Just move a little bit. Literally go for a walk. Go for a walk outside. See how it changes everything. Every day, go for a walk. It's that simple. They sit here and they just sit there, and then they don't understand why they're sick and why they're fat and why their back hurts, and they don't understand all this stuff. Just go out and do something. I've always been a big believer of the day you stop moving is the day you start dying. There's 100% truth to that. Whether you're 30 years old or whether you're 90 years old, now the 90-year-old, there may be some issues to where they can't move, but if you're physically able to move and you continue to move, you're just adding minutes to your life, versus a 30-year-old who's just going to sit there and play video games and 12 hours a day sitting on a video game chair and just playing video games. You watch this, the South Park about these kids playing video games. They get fat and got acne, and that's truth. That's America. That is the truth. So you sit there and do nothing. Your body just starts dying. I mean, your muscles literally start dying. I don't know what the answer to that is, other than to tell people to get out and go do something. You can tell them all day long, oh yeah, I know, I need to do it. Well, you need to do it, then do it. Well, it's hard. No, it's not. It's mental. It's all mental. I was a buddy of mine at work. He was actually listening to a podcast of a woman who I believe they had just had a kid. She was losing her job. He lost his job. It was all about the COVID thing and this and that. And, she said one day she woke up just feeling like a big fat piece of shit and not worth anything and this and that. So she told herself, tomorrow when my alarm goes off, I'm getting up and I'm going to do something productive. And she told herself in her head, she would count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then go. And then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Anytime she wanted to do something, it would be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it was something about reteaching the brain, or the brain learning that as soon as it hears 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, something's about to happen. We don't know what we're going to do yet, but we're going to go do something. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get up and go, no matter what. And again, I am really bad at retaining information. He knows it better than I do, but I don't know if she's become super successful because of it and has turned her life around, and they're no longer, they got a roof over their head. They can feed their kids and all this garbage. But the mental side of things of just get up and go, just get up and go, just get up and go. You tell yourself, just get up and go do it. Go do it. Don't tell yourself, okay, I'm going to go. And then If you're going to tell yourself you're going to get up and go, you got to get up and go. Because the brain's going to think, oh, okay, yeah, you're crying wolf again. Get up and go and go. It's easy to say, I guess. If you get the right mindset, it's easy to do. You just got to do it. Do it a few times, and a few times turns into a weekly thing, turns into a monthly thing, turns into a yearly thing, turns into a lifelong thing. It's not just a thing that you do for a month. It's a thing that you do for life. And I think that's where people get lost. Is, oh, well, if I do this for a month, I'll probably no. If you do this for a life, you do it for a lifetime. Set good habits, get into good habits, and continue that habit. It's consistency. Consistency is key almost everywhere. Almost with every aspect of life, consistency is key. If you're not consistent on it, you're not going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I would argue as well, like you get a lot of pushback for, martial arts and CrossFit. Oh, it's expensive. I think what people don't understand is when you walk through the door of a dojo, of an MMA gym, of a CrossFit gym, there will be an element of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like you just have to make it across the threshold, wearing the right clothes. An hour later, you're going to look back and go, well, shit, I just worked out, or I just rolled, yes, or I just whatever. And that's it. So there are, better skilled, more experienced people that will lead you through that. I mean, I coach CrossFit, but I go to other people's classes, and I go to my jiu-jitsu classes, and because other people are better than me. And, they also motivate me. If I walk through a door, I can't turn around and go, yeah, I don't want to do that. You're stuck now. You're there. So then, you kind of swept along by the torrent that is all the people that you're working out with. Some are going to be fitter and stronger. Some might be less fit and strong. But collectively, you're going to go through that together, and you're going to turn around an hour later going, I'm so glad I showed up today.
100%. I can't tell you how many times, countless. I have a regimen of every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Those are my run days. And I don't like to run distances because distance to me, for what I do, distance to me doesn't do me anything. Okay. I like my sprint intervals. I have to run intervals. I like the heart rate going up and down, rest and recovery. So every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, I have a 30-minute sprint interval thing that I do on the treadmill. And I can't tell you how many times it's just been, I don't want to do this. I don't feel good. I don't go and do it. Go and do it. At the end of those 30 minutes, like, okay, I'm really glad I did that. I want to keep going. So then you just continue on to, doing some accessory work or something. Because usually Sunday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays are a little bit lighter days for me anyways. So, okay, I'll just continue doing some core stuff, some accessory work. But the just going and doing it, just getting past that threshold. You step into that door, into that realm of I'm going to do this, and then you do it. Whether you feel good when you do it or whether you don't, at the end of it, you're going to be glad you did it. And like you said, you go into these other classrooms that these people are better than you. You get out of your comfort zone. And I think that's a lot of people's problems is they don't want to get out of their comfort zone. Well, I'm comfortable here. I've got my Snuggie on and I feel good. So what? Take it off, get naked and jump in the snow. Get uncomfortable, man. That's when I was training, I still train. Let me say not when I was, because I still train, but when I was training for fights, I would try to find that deepest, darkest hole that I could find, make myself uncomfortable and live there for that training session. Because if I could live uncomfortably for an hour and a half in this training session, 15 minutes of uncomfortable is no big deal. So that's people, they don't like to be uncomfortable. They don't like it. Pete, sorry. Certain people, I feel they embrace that. They embrace that. They take it, and I feel like you can point those people out in the crowd.
Absolutely. Well, an interesting perspective I'd love to get from you as well is sparring from when you first started as a young man through to now. I started in semi-contact, it was kind of tippy-tappy taekwondo, then went to you could knock people out with your feet but not your hands. And then, found myself at shoot box in LA, which I've talked about this before. I actually trained with Anthony Johnson. He was a kind of new fighter back then too, and we just lost him sadly last month.
Yep. That's terrible.
But it was Fight Club hands down. I got ear perforations. I got my nose broken. Jaw probably dislocated again, and had headaches. And trying to go back to a shift when you're still foggy and you got black eyes, it doesn't look great. It's not a good optic. Fast forward to today, I'm seeing a lot of the coaches and gyms now are pulling away from that. Oh, you can condition the brain by murdering each other, to a lot more pad work, a lot more light sparring, and saving the real hard contact for the ring or the octagon. What was your evolution, if any, of the level of sparring through your career in the 20 years?
You basically just said it. That was when I first started fighting. It was before it was the cool thing to do. I mean, my first fight was April of 2003. So back then it went from let's put some headgear on and beat the shit out of each other to, let's not even worry about the headgear and beat the shit out of each other to, okay, and that's the gym that I go to on the north side of Chicago, New Breed, with Mark Vives and Bob Hemrich. We went to a lot of offense defense type sparring. Okay, you are only allowed all, and they basically yell switch, offense defense. Okay, and you pull your punches, obviously, because if we're sparring with small gloves and you are throwing 100%, you're going to throttle people. They're going to get sparked for sure, but knowing, just basically, I think the thing is knowing your range, knowing your distance. Okay, I can pull my punch, but I know if I were to fully follow through, you're mine all day long. The body and the brain's only going to take so much damage, and that's the boat that I'm in right now. That is why my last 3 fights, you watch O'Malley. Okay, O'Malley sparked me, but I feel like if I fought O'Malley 5-6 years ago, he may have dropped me, but I don't think he would have. I don't think he would have starched me. But then you look at Castaneda. I fought Castaneda. That dude didn't hit me hard. He hit me a lot. He hit me with a lot of punches. Now, again, 5 years ago, I would have walked through that and smiled at him, told him keep coming. Now you go to my Stamen fight. You look at Cody Stamen. He just grazed me right on the side of the head, right in the right spot. Just hit me with the side of his glove, and that was enough to send me into a stupor. The body only takes so much damage. You can only take so much until that button's been pushed. I can't do a cartwheel without getting dizzy anymore. Now part of that is probably age. I get that. But part of that is also 20 years of sparring and getting hit and fighting and, 40 plus fights and God knows how many rounds of sparring. You can only take so much damage. And when that damage is done, you either need to change your game plan and not get hit, or it's time to walk out the door. And that's, I said, that's the boat that I'm in. I can still take a decent punch depending on where it's at. you hit me right in the right spot and it's kind of like, whoa, hold on a minute here. So the heavy sparring, I don't want to say there's not a place for it, because it's the way to get better at fighting, I feel, is fighting. Just like the way to get better at wrestling is wrestling. You obviously, you have to train and you have to go through the motions and you have to do this. But if you're just going through the motions, it may just be going through the motions when you get in there and compete. I don't think you need to be knocking each other's heads off, but I think you need to know that you can still touch that person. Again, muscle memory. Your muscle memory. If my muscle memory is, and I'm only throwing my punches to here, well, I'm not going to be used to fully extending. Okay, I got you. Well, no, you really didn't, because if I can reach out and touch, I'm not throwing 100%, but I still touched you. So if I know that I can touch you and my distance and my space is correct, well, I know that when I throw hard, it's going to be faster, it's going to be harder, and I still got you.
Well, I think a scary thing as well, a lot of people come on here, whether they're combat, martial artists, or whether they're, breachers or, special operators, whoever they are. you have the TBI element, which is obviously what you're experiencing at the hands of another person or feet. But then the amplifying element is sleep deprivation. And a lot of people in the first responder professions don't realize how damaging that actually is. So,
Absolutely.
I think that's a thing that we really need to take a step back and look at as well. My goal is that we give more rest and recovery between shifts. I know you said your schedule is pretty good, but it also depends on, the core volume too. But a lot of people that work the 24/48s, they never get the chance to process that. So if you add, whether it's your profession that's causing concussions or your sport, you add that to not sleeping, that's a recipe for amplified brain challenges in the future.
Yes, I agree. I used to be a believer of I can sleep 4 hours and I can go. I can just keep going. And not so much anymore. It's you see all these people talk about how, this millionaire, he sleeps till 3 o'clock and he gets up and does this and does this and does this. That's bullshit, man. Absolutely not. You cannot function, at least highly function, on 3-4 hours of sleep. It just doesn't work that way. The sleep is I think as important as the training. That's where most of your recovery, I would almost venture to say all of your recovery happens. Because the body needs to rest and repair and recover. Well, when you're sleeping, good deep sleep, that's what the body is focusing on, is good rest, recovery, and repair, versus I'm training, I sleep for 4 hours. I'm up, I'm training, I'm doing something, I'm working. The body, like you said, has no time to recover and repair. It needs that time. I used to believe that, not anymore. I gotta have that. I like that rest and recovery. My body functions better. Again, when I first started working with my strength and training coach or strength and conditioning coach, we would get into a training session and he, dude, just take a break. No, I can't. I got to fight this dude. I got to be ready, blah, blah, blah. He goes, take a break. Just take a break. It took him probably the better part of 3 to 5 years to get me to actually learn to take a break. But you got to listen to your body. You get into a good, now I'm not saying don't train when you don't feel like it, because light work is okay. But if you've got a heavy, hard day ahead of you and it's like, okay, I am not feeling this. Well, maybe you need to sit that day out. Listen to your body. And if you're supposed to have a hard training day, or it's a sparring day, or, if it's just a hard day and your body's telling you no, that hard day is going to be that much harder. And then the next day is going to be even hard again, because your body's not ready for it. I would take 3 days of training at 100% versus 6 at 60. If I'm training 6 days at 60%, again, back to muscle memory. If I'm training 60%, that's what my body thinks. Okay, 60%. See, that's what your body's used to. If I get 3 days of training at 100%, not only am I getting better training, but my body knows what 100% feels like. So to get that rest and recovery, if your body needs a rest day, jump on an Aerodyne bike just for 30 minutes, just nice and slow pace, just consistent movement. Take that rest when you need it. Take that rest when you can get it, especially for people in our profession, because there's been countless nights that I can think of. Okay, the tones went off at 9 o'clock. Okay, the tones went off at 11. Okay, the tones went off at 3. Okay, the tones went off at 5. Fuck, I'm lucky if I slept 30 minutes that night. By the time you get back, you get back in bed, you do our reports, you sit down. Okay, let's go again. And not only just the constant up, down, but what that's doing to your heart, your blood pressure. Every time those tones go off, boom, that's a jump. Your system's getting a jolt every single time those tones go off. So getting that recovery when you can, I think, is important. Getting that rest when you can, I think, is huge.
Yeah, I think we're really bad at telling ourselves the fairy tale that we have all this time off. We are bad at that, because if you take the 24/48, which I worked for a lot of my career without Kelly, that's it's 1 on 2 off. Well, a day is 8 hours plus an hour lunch to 9, so it's 3 days on, 1 day off. And it's only 10 days a month. No, if you do that equation, it's 30 days a month. It's a 56-hour work week. So when everyone else is exhausted from their 40-hour office job and gone to bed, you're awake working pediatric mega codes and trying to pull someone out of a fire. So we're our own worst enemy with that. If you're going to ask someone to do the jobs that we do, we should at least be at a 42-hour week. If not, you could argue even less. But, until we change this kind of fairy tale that we talked about, which was probably amazing when we had Dalmatians and horses and steam powered,
the horse-drawn buggies.
But that's not 2022. So I think we have to really look at that, and hearing people who are athletes in the fire service and understanding the negative mental health element of not sleeping and the negative performance element, therefore the higher level of injury. All those, it's nonsensical when you look at the whole equation, but we need the real leaders in the fire service to step up and say, look, we've been doing it wrong for so long. I don't know what your pattern works out to be per week, how many hours, but the average person, like I said, 56 hours a week. This is insane.
I think that's what ours is based off of, is a 56-hour work week. Because there's times when we'll work 3 days out of the week. There's times when we'll work, again, depending on Kelly, but we'll work 1 or 2 days out of the week. So it's all dependent. But I believe that's what ours is based off of also, is a 56-hour week. Yeah.
Now with that, were you WEC champion before you became a firefighter? Have I got that right chronologically?
Yes. So WEC was 2006 when I won the belt, if I'm not mistaken. And I hired on the fire service in 2008.
Okay. So as you were progressing through and, you have this realization like, oh shit, I'm actually a champion of something legit. You're climbing, and you look at the people that you fought, it's incredible. All the, the who's who of your division. When you joined the fire service, as you progressed through, did you notice the impact of that schedule and the job itself on your training? Because the reason I ask, Tim Kennedy's been on, I think 3 or 4 times now. But in one of the first interviews I had with Tim, he said, well, look, wasn't making excuses, but he was an active duty Green Beret as well, still performing at a high level, but serving his country simultaneously. So, was there a takeaway, or did you notice some sort of diminished performance because of the fact that you were also wearing a uniform?
No, actually, and again, back to Tim Kennedy, I love that dude. That dude, absolutely amazing human being. Love that guy. Love everything he does. But as far as like a diminishing performance, I actually think I had an increased performance. Because before that, I was working 60 hours a week outside of a steel mill, just dirty, nasty work. So I would work from 6:30 in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon. And then I would go lift for an hour, and then I would go train for an hour and a half. So, my 10-hour day quickly became a 14, 16-hour day of work every day. And I won a WEC title at that, but I was also young. So as my age increased, and that schedule, I think helped me to maintain that level. Especially with the 4 days off, you get a recovery day, and then, okay, I'll go train hard for a couple of days. I get a recovery day. I go back to work. My work days, I would work out while I was there, but not as intensely. Obviously, should we catch something, or, just sometimes you just need it, depending on how my 4 days went off. But I feel like that schedule actually increased my performance and allowed me to continue down that path for as long as I did.
Beautiful. All right. Yeah, it's funny. Ron Ortiz is a high-level CrossFit guy, and he had a similar thing. But I think his dynamic at that station specifically, I think he was at a beach station. I don't think they were up all night. So it's a different dynamic to some people listening, myself included. All right. Well, then I want to get to nutrition. But just before we do, I used to train with Felicia Spencer, and her fight with Amanda Nunes, you were on that card against Sean O'Malley. Again, yet another phenomenal athlete. But what was interesting is you've got these people who were about to step in the cage and spit and bleed and all over each other. But at the time, they're wearing 3M masks that were probably doing absolutely nothing. But it was very much, as you said, sadly, deeper into this COVID thing, it was more the visuals, the optics than actual medical science with, fitted N95s, et cetera, et cetera. So what was that experience for you as an MMA fighter during COVID? And then we'll take that one UFC for an example.
Well, they're all wearing their masks. You could probably venture to guess what my stance on the whole COVID thing is. If you watch our weigh-ins, I had the mask, and that's what people are. You're supposed to wear it around your nose to be effective. Really? Come on. Anyways, it was weird. It was really weird. And when they said that they're going to continue fights, but it's going to be the fighters in their corners, I mean, that was strange to me. It's like it's kind of like the old school Brazilian days. Okay, our best fighter from our gym and your best fighter from your gym, we're going to meet here and we're going to fight. We're going to see who's got the best fighter and who's got the best gym. That's almost exactly what it was. It was so creepy. I mean, you could hear every smack, especially on the TV. You really got to hear what it's like to actually be in there. You could hear the corners clearly. You could hear the smacks clearly. Just a strange, eerie type of realism. This is as raw as it gets. You don't have the crowd screaming. This is a fist fight. This is what a fist fight sounds like. If you've ever wondered what it's like when leather cracks skin, here you go. It was an interesting experience.
Now, just with that as well, you have this 20-year career. I mean, you were fighting early on WEC, then UFC, and then fought at this high level. You've been a champion WEC. You're fighting phenomenal athletes all the way through your UFC career as well. I see a lot of people struggle when they transition out of a profession that they have identified with. And, obviously we're invested in that career. Some people transition flawlessly, but some people, if you watch, for example, the documentary, The Weight of Gold, or, you look at some of your fellow firefighters, I'm sure, you're on the back door now. You're not that thing anymore. And some people struggle with that identity, with that purpose, with that loss of tribe. What was it that made you finally pull the trigger on retiring? And then what was that transition out where you went from being in the cage to obviously still being immersed in the community, but not being under the spotlights anymore?
So I feel like my transition is the former, the flawlessly. Everything is just like, everything's in the right place at the right time. I have two small boys, 6 and 8 years old. Both of them are wrestling. I coach their wrestling team. I coached their wrestling team last year. It was a little bit harder. I made most of their practices. But when you're training and you have your own thing going on, the unfortunate thing for them is dad's training is a little more important than a 6-year-old wrestling's training, because dad's training is what's going to make the house payment and this and that. But as far as like getting out of it, I think I'm happier now than I've been in a long time. I can focus on my boys. I can focus on their wrestling team. I can focus, not that I wasn't focused on the fire department, but I have a captain. He was the former assistant chief. Now he's back down to captain, but he would always give me shit about the fighting and this and that. He goes, well, when are you going to quit that fighting and you can focus more on your part-time job? So I guess, I'm at a point now where I can focus more on my part-time job. Not that I was never not focused on it, because if you're not focused on a job like firefighting, I mean, the consequences are real. You're not coming home. So everything's just kind of in the right place at the right time. Dad's ride's over. My boy's ride is just beginning. What should it be, whatever they want to do. But as far as coaching the wrestling team, and if dad doesn't make it to the gym for his training session, well, there's really no consequences for it. I don't have to worry about, am I in good enough shape to fight another elite athlete? I just need to worry about, am I in good enough shape to fight your average everyday American, which that's not very hard to do, per what we've already talked about. The transition is, I'm in a good place, mentally, physically. I feel more healthy. I feel more sane. I'm not worried about my training as much as I am, or as much as I used to, and as far as the decision to walk away that night, the night that I retired, I didn't know I was going to retire. It was in the back of my head. I know a lot of people gave DC a lot of shit for, why didn't you give Eddie the mic, blah, 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 blah. He was taking his gloves off. I wasn't taking my gloves off because I was ready to retire. If he would have handed me the mic and be like, okay, here we go, let's do it. Do what, man? What are you talking about? I'm just taking my gloves off because here we are. So I remember going into that fight before I actually signed to fight. I would go to the gym and I had fun. It was fun. Okay, I want to be here. This is great. I'm having fun. No big deal. As soon as I signed that line, hey, okay, we're going to fight in June. And the next day I showed up to the gym like, this fucking sucks. I don't want to be here. So it wasn't fun, I think that's a lot of, even like Cowboy said, a lot of his reasons that's my reason, that was, we've been in it for a long time. It wasn't fun anymore. When you have to do it, it's not fun. When you want to do it, and just because you want to be there, it's a blast. So, that night I sat down and talked to Sean Shelby, and I told him, or he said, dude, you need to retire. It's time to retire. So, I goes, dude, no, you need to retire. You need to retire. I said, Sean, okay, we've had this discussion before. If you're ever thinking about cutting me, just let me know so I can retire. I said, so if you tell me right now that if I don't retire, you're going to cut me, then okay. He goes, what don't you fucking get? You are retired. I specifically remember him looking at me. What don't you fucking get? You are retired. Okay, Sean, I'm retired. We're done. And that moment right then and there when I said, okay, I'm good. I'm done. It was like, whew, just everything released. Just okay, I'm done. I probably should have done it a little while back, but we always hold on too long, especially in that sport. And I even told him in the locker room, my thought was, okay, let's get this fight done and over with. Let's go win this fight. Let's walk away. We're done. And he looked at me and he goes, no, you wouldn't. Absolutely not. If you would have won that fight, you would have been begging me for when's my next one. And he's probably right. He's probably almost 100% right. Because even though I had it set in my mind, let's go win this fight and walk away on a win, he said 2% of people walk away on top. And those 2% of people, unfortunately, I'm not in that 2%. And that's fine. Like I said, I'm in a good place physically and mentally now. So it's, I can focus my boys, my wife, my part-time career. Like I say, again, right place, right time. I'm up for a promotion in January, so I'll be getting promoted to a captain spot. There's a spot in the dive team opening up in the springtime, so I can focus more time on that. So, right place, right time.
Well, it's so important to hear your perspective. Obviously, you're talking about fighting specifically, but I've seen this in some people in the fire service too. People stay 20, 25, 30 years because their pension tells them that you need to stay 20, 25, or 30 years. That doesn't mean that's the actual shelf life of your career, depending on the department. I ended up transitioning out for a totally separate reason. I found myself ultimately, after working at what I would argue one of the best fire departments in the States, working for one of the worst fire departments in the States.
Sure.
And after 5 years of making changes, the universe was like, listen, dipshit, I don't know how to make this any clearer. You need to go do this podcast thing because you're not going to change it here. And so that was my transition out. But what used to break my heart was seeing firefighters or cops or whoever else with an app on their phone that count you down. Oh, only another 9 years, 3 months and 27 days. And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. You need to either change departments or maybe it's just time. You don't have to stay because a pension tells you to. That's 10, whatever many years of your life that you could be doing something that you absolutely love instead.
Yeah. If you're counting it down, and again, if you've made it to my last year, okay, I'm retiring now. Okay. Now you got your ticker. I get that. But if you've got your ticker 10 years prior, yeah, those 10 years, they're probably going to go by fairly slow. When it's time, and you need to know, and you need to walk away. I don't know when I'll walk away. I couldn't tell you. I'm not thinking about it. It's one of those, like you said, if you start counting down the days and those days are 5-10 years down the road, you're already too late. Now the thing that our department has is that you can sign into what they call a drop, where they'll freeze your pension for the last 3 years. And then basically when you walk away, they give you that check for your last 3 years of your pension. So you get a giant check, but your pension is frozen. So your pension doesn't grow anymore. So I could understand counting down the last 3 years, at least on our department, because I'm signed into the pension. I'm retiring in 3 years. I've already set, the wheels are in motion. This is happening. But any more than that, you're just not enjoying it anymore. If you're okay, I can't wait. Now, don't get me wrong. When I get to work, there's days when it's like, okay, I just can't wait to get home. That's just human nature. I like my family. I like my boys. I love my wife. I like being home. I'm a homebody, so I know there's some people that I just got to get away. Give me 5 minutes. There's times when my boys are driving me up the wall. It's like, oh, what? God, come on. I get 5 minutes down the road. I'm going. I can't wait to go to work. Can't wait to go to work. I get 5 minutes down the road. It's like, okay, I'll go back. I can go back now. I just need a 5-minute reset. So, counting down that many years I think that's too much. That's too much. It's time to, like you said, go do something else. Find something. Now, if you're counting down 5 years and you're 5 years, because 20 years and until we're vested into a pension, I don't know. I would assume it's probably the same for you guys. But if you're counting down 5 years and then in 5 years I've got my 20, I'm going to go do something else. So I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword there. If you're counting down, if you've already got your 20 and you're counting down another 5 or 10 years, just go out the door. But if at 20 you want to walk out and go do something else, and you've got 15, 16 years in, okay, we can count down the last couple of years. So knowing when it's time is a big thing. Because if you're not happy there and you're not doing, or you're not focused on that job, again, that job could potentially be yours or somebody else's life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's it. If your heart isn't in it, and you're unhappy, then no amount of money is worth that. And then, like you said, that pays back the other way. If you're not dedicated to the profession, you might become a liability, which will cost, your own life, one of your partner's lives, or someone that we're supposed to be responding to.
Absolutely.
Well, staying on the longevity for one moment as well, I heard you touch on a pretty powerful story that steered your kind of journey when it came to your own nutrition. So I'd love to just kind of hear your perspective on that, because there's a lot of I don't know, there's all kinds of shit going on, the Liver King spouting and all these fucking idiots that we hear on online. And there's a lot of anti plant-based, vegan, vegetarian rhetoric too. To me, everyone has to explore and find their own nutritional path, but I find that the whole food is usually the kind of true north. So yes. What was the story that kind of, the personal story that steered you towards that different, that change in direction nutritionally?
So nutritionally, dude, I didn't start eating greens until I was probably 26 years old. And at 26, it was green beans, canned green beans at that. Oh, I'll try green beans. Hey, not too bad. So green beans stemmed into, okay, maybe I better eat a little bit better. And it started when I first started fighting. It was pizza and McDonald's. I could eat whatever I want because 22-year-old man, your metabolism is just on fire. So I turned 26 and metabolism's changed a little bit. And it's like, I'm gaining a little bit of weight I don't want to gain. So I started eating a little bit better. Noticed as I started eating better, I started feeling better. Okay, well, we'll get rid of this and we'll add this. So I change things, feel a little bit better. Get rid of this, add this, change things, feel a little bit better. About 5-6 years ago, maybe even 8 years ago, I don't know, about the early 30s, I went from in camp, I would eat clean and I would eat good, what I would call good. Now, looking back now, probably wasn't super good. And I still don't eat super good, but back then I would eat clean while I was in camp. And it would take me all 6 to 8 weeks of camp to get down to my weight where I needed to be. I like to train around 149 to 151, somewhere's in there. And then after camp, I would go nuts. Pizza every day. I had bags full of Reese's and just fall off the rails. I think I jumped up as the highest I've ever been was 163, 164, which I know some of these, you look at Aljamain, he's 176. How the fuck did you do that, man? How do you go from 136 to 176 in a week? How did that work? So I quickly realized that all of this work trying to get down to a training weight just to, it takes me 6 weeks to get down to my training weight. Well, after those 6 weeks, then it's just a recover, repair, and keep things sharp, get down to fight weight and fight. So I quit doing the binging off the rails, and I started my fight diet. And everybody says diet. Well, your diet should just be in what you eat every day. I'm going to try this diet. I'm going to try that diet. I'm going to try this diet. Fuck the diet fads, man. Just eat good food. So I started doing that, and I quickly noticed that my weight wasn't shooting up. My weight stayed outside of camp. I was maybe 154, maybe 155. And then to get back down to 151, it was just doing away with pizza once a week. So that's just a family thing. I think a lot of families do the Friday pizza night, so we would do pizza once a week. And outside of that, I'd eat fairly clean. And it was, my weight was right back down to where I needed to be in training camp. I tried the keto thing, which again, if you're a keto advocate, I'm sorry, but fuck keto. Especially for an endurance athlete, maybe, but for somebody, a high intensity athlete, no, it didn't work. I felt fantastic for about the first 2 weeks and then went, just felt like garbage. I tried the plant-based thing, plant-based with eggs. I would eat eggs, and I actually felt pretty good. I did that for about 6 months, and then I don't know if I was getting sick or if it was just the lack of meat, or I don't know what it was. I just was feeling off one day. I was like, I'm going to have a burger. I'm going to try some meat, and then went back onto the mostly plant-based, but a little bit of meat. And I'm still in limbo with the plant-based versus omnivore versus, that type of dieting. But I think it's like you said, I think everybody is different. So this person could eat 100% vegan and do fantastic, be great on it. But somebody else eats it and they're iron deficient and anemic, and they got all these issues. This guy I think straight carnivore, I don't think there's enough evidence on that long term to justify eating straight carnivore. I think you're lacking sufficient nutrients in your plants and vegetables. I was listening to a podcast. Gosh dang it, I don't know. I don't remember who it was, but it was basically it was a carnivore diet advocate. He's a doctor. If you said his name, I would know him. You may even know who he is. I don't know. But I was listening to a podcast of this guy debating plant-based versus carnivore, and the plant-based guy said, "Well, there's no long-term studies on straight carnivore diet. A, it hasn't been around long enough, and B, they're not doing these years and years and years long studies." He goes, "Well, what about this study? They studied this many people's and it was 8 weeks." And He goes, 8 weeks. You just said it, 8 weeks. That's not a long-term study, So I feel like you can benefit by doing it short-term, but in the long term, I don't think it's going to be sufficient. I believe it was Chris Kresser. I don't know if you've ever listened to anything he talks about. He talked about him might have been Huberman. Andrew Huberman might have mentioned something about basically a 2/3 plants and veggies and meat. Good meats. And that's the thing. Everybody, well, this burger, that no good plant-based or not plant grass-fed beef. And again, I get it. That's expensive. Not everybody can do that, but I think the 2/3 fruits and veggies, and then the other third being from meats, whether it be beef, whether it be liver, whether it be chicken, just I think there's nutrients in all of the food that your body needs, that you need to take in. And again, people are different. So the 2/3 may work for you, may work for you, may work for you, but it's not going to work for you. So it's a matter of trying things and seeing how you feel and taking it from there.
Well, and again, back to that environment, I had the exact same experience with you at 6 months on plant-based, which I felt amazing, had the best poos, saved a whole bunch of money on toilet paper. It was incredible, but I felt, and again, it might have just been, I was fighting something off at that time, but I felt there was at that 6 months, there was a diminished strength, a diminished energy. And so then I introduced meat. And I think that when you look at, some of these things, I mean, the carnivore I struggle to understand because prehistorically we're not good at catching animals. So I don't know how the hell we're supposed to be designed to eat meat all the time.
Yes.
And then the same with plant-based. I mean, I think that we were probably, if you look way back, we were probably scavengers. We probably were sucking out, bone marrow and eating.
Well, if you look at our digestive tract and our teeth, okay, we have sharp teeth, but we also have grinder teeth. I believe like you said, and I think it was the Game Changers documentary that I watched with
James Wilkes.
Yes, Wilkes. Yes. Talking about our digestive tract, he said, if you look at the digestive tract of a carnivore, it's this long. If you look at the digestive tract of a herbivore or omnivore or whatever, it's this long, because there's so much other stuff going on there that you need to break down. We have this digestive tract. We don't have that digestive tract. I don't know what is right for everybody, but I feel like the 2/3 whole foods, and anything that's if it took any kind of processing to make it, I don't think it's right for us.
No, well, I think you hit the word on the head. What I've seen are the commonalities between the carnivore diet, though I take it back. Some of the people I see that are very pro-carnivore are eating it in and out all the time, which I don't think is clean meat. But that aside, removing that bad example, whether it's vegetarian, vegan, a lot of these, there is a common denominator. And I had James on the show because I was nauseated by, I think it was Chris Chrisser on Joe Rogan's, and they were just demonizing veganism. And I'm like, for fuck's sake, you wasted 6 hours just trying to prove a point that you're not going to win because not everyone's the same. But where you all agree is you remove processed shitty food. That's where it all aligns. So if you choose your right fix for you, and that is the common denominator, you're probably going to see amazing results.
100%. It's whole foods, non-processed shit. And again, I watched the Cresser and Wilkes while they were debating back and forth on Rogan. And it's funny because I feel like they don't feel any different. I feel like they feel the same, but Wilkes, he was at his throat because he was attacking his documentary, which I understand that. But I mean, he did a really good job, I think, of defending all of his research and everything he did. I think he did a very good job and basically hit the nail on the head. But again, at the end of the day, as much as they were at each other's throats, well, I say at each other's throats, Chris, I don't think really ever was at his throat, but James was just pounding. I feel like they feel the same. It's like, okay, you guys are on the same team here. You're on the same team here. What are we throwing punches for? So, but again, it was because Cresser, I think, was trying to debunk his film.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem is they looked at it at absolutes. And what saddened me is, again, that was 6 hours, as you said, they could have come together. And I actually had James on before he went back on Joe's show, so I had to hold off releasing it until it went out, so I didn't give away any secrets. Right. But, again, you could have spent 6 hours saying, okay, well, you say this, and, that may not be entirely true. In the documentary, there's kind of absolute there. But I see what you're saying about increased fiber and multi-nutrient and all this thing. Well, yeah, and I see what you're saying about carnivore. I disagree, but I understand. And they could have brought all this information to the people. But I have never seen, I mean, we hold debates on this pedestal. I've never seen a debate where someone's won. oh, you know what? I've totally changed my mind now. Now you two shout at each other for 3 hours. Thank you so much. I'm going to go and totally change my life. No, it's absolute bullshit. It's an ego competition where they're massaging each other. And it's fucking boring to watch and you take away nothing. So figure out where you actually align and talk about that instead.
Yep. It's hard. It's hard to watch and it's hard to listen when so far right and so far left, and they're trying to find that middle. There is no middle ground because, and again, back to the internet, the media, the social media stuff. I feel is a lot at fault here because if I want to find an article that tells me that sky is green, I can find it. There's information on right and there's information on left, depending on how you want to feel and how you want to believe. You can find that information out there. Well, this says this. Okay, I get that. Well, this says this. Okay, I get that. But what about this? But what? Okay, so obviously we are not going to meet in the middle here. Let's just cut our ties and go our separate ways. Rather than sitting here and sounding like a bunch of children, let's just, well, okay, this is the way you feel. This is the way I feel. See you later.
Yeah. You said it's blue, I said it's green, but can we both agree that we want it to be clean so our children don't get horrendous respiratory diseases? Boom. There's your commonality.
Bingo. 100%. 100%.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I want to transition to Mustache Mafia quickly before we go to some closing questions. So you're wearing the shirt. Obviously, we're in a profession where the mustache is revered. So talk to me about the origin of that and how people can get the products.
So my mustache, I grew my first one. Boy, I couldn't even tell you how long ago it was, but just as a joke, we're all gonna grow handlebar mustaches. Okay, so we all grew them, and all right, shave it off. I don't like dealing with it anymore. The origin of the mustache for me stems back to my dad, and I'll never remember or I'll never forget. He was talking about going to the barber, and he's at the barber, and the barber's cutting his hair. Next thing you know, he switches to his mustache. And my dad right now, he's a giant beard, but he's always had a mustache. Sometimes he shaves the beard up, but always had a mustache for as long as I can remember. And this barber switches from the hair and goes to the mustache, and he didn't shave it off, but starts trimming it above his lip. Oh, he fucking flipped out. He said, "What are you doing?" He flipped. "Oh, I'm just trimming your mustache up." "I didn't tell you to touch my mustache. This mustache is older than you are. Blah, 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 blah." So and that it kind of stemmed from there. He's always had a mustache not entire life, but since he could grow a mustache, he's had one probably since middle school. Who knows? But I had one going, and then when we had our firstborn Jack in 2014. I told her, okay, when we have our kid, because she hates it. She still hates it to this day. So okay, I'll go shave it off. So I went and shaved it off and let it go. Finally, a couple of years later, I grew it back, and I think it was like 2019. I grew it back, and just for giggles, I had shirts made before, but not of this type. So I went and had shirts made, and I said, you know what? Just for giggles, I'm going to send off for a trademark. And I sent off for a trademark on the Mustache Mafia, and it actually came back. It got accepted. So there's a trademark on Mustache Mafia. So the unfortunate part for her is she's stuck with it now. It's just a thing. And I'm not, as far as getting product, I do have products, but I am not very diligent at upkeeping, or I'm not a social media marketing, or I never really marketed myself. I don't really market this. I need to, like I said, I have stuff for sale, but it's my Instagram is official Mustache Mafia. And again, I kind of started it because it was back to the whole pussification of everything going on. Like, this is stupid, man. Grow a mustache, be a man. You've got balls and testosterone. Let's fucking act like it. It's just irritating to me to see the way that the young men in America act. It's a friend of ours who used to put on fights. She said it best. It's just unapologetically masculine. It's all things manly. if you're into hunting, if you're into fishing, you don't necessarily have to have a mustache to be in the mustache mafia or support the mustache mafia. Just support man shit. Even for women, I did the very first podcast or interview I did after the mustache mafia. So you don't even have to be a man. Just if you're a woman and you enjoy mustache rides, you get on in. I can't believe you said that. I don't care if you don't like it. You don't have to look at my stuff. I don't like dancing around things. Well, what if they don't like this? What if they don't like that? I don't care. You don't like it, don't buy it. You don't like it, don't look at it. You don't like it, don't listen to me. I don't care. Whether you like me or whether you don't, I don't care. It makes no difference to me. I'm not going to lose any sleep if I've got a million people that say, "Oh, this guy's he's a sexist. He's this, he's that." No, I'm not. I'm not against women. I'm not against women's rights. I believe that men should be men.
Well, it's interesting because the word toxic masculinity, was thrown around a lot. I think that best describes the false masculinity you're about 10 years younger than me, but our generation roughly was sold when we were young. The boys don't cry, rub some dirt in it, revering these bodybuilders. When you actually realize that, no, if you watch the Band of Brothers, the real men that speak in each of those episodes, they're in tears because what they did for this country and the people they lost and the memories they brought home can crush a man, but the other side is obviously that you become a protector in your community. And I totally get the projecting on a young girl that you need to wear a dress and like dolls is also not a healthy thing because there are, young women that can do a full spectrum of quote unquote man shit. But so that's where I think that the kind of faux masculinity conversation is really dangerous. And I think it's swung so far the other way, as you said, that people are scared to talk about manliness at all. Is actually where we need to be talking about the dangers of masculinity is all these men, in this particular case, that are fucking sticking guns in their mouth because they believed in this fairy tale of what a man is supposed to be. And a man is supposed to be strong, as is a woman, but also kind and compassionate. And there's no better example of that than a firefighter. We do manly or womanly stuff when we're wearing the uniform that has to have courage and, be well prepared for. But we also have to process the horrible shit that we see and understand that it was kindness and compassion that drove us to ever put a uniform on in the first place.
Absolutely. It's like you said, you have to be able to deal with that. And the unfortunate side of it is a lot of people they just hang on to it. They hang on to that. They don't let it go until it's too late, and it's the unfortunate side of that is, like you said, they're sticking guns in their mouths. They're hanging themselves from rafters. It's okay to express your feelings. That's fine. You still are a man because of the actions that you do. Just because you are distraught by something that you saw doesn't make you any less of what you are. So, yeah, but that's like I said, it's back to I feel like the media and the social media I feel is number one culprit here.
Yeah, well, I forget who it was now, but someone was saying that a lot of this is also coming from colleges and universities, and this is not, something I've visibly seen with my own eyes. This is secondhand information, but it makes sense. We know how many people are experts in certain fields that have never actually done the job. They've gone from, being a student to being a professor, and don't get me wrong, are phenomenal people in education, but with this, pendulum shift the other way, this cancel culture is actually stopping communication, which is not only, what's the right word? Discouraging conversations on obesity, on, combat and all these things that make our country healthier and safer, but they're also discouraging communications for children, men and women to be able to talk about how they're really feeling and therefore seek help, seek tribalism, seek community. And it's very, very dangerous conversation or lack thereof.
Yes, they are vilifying, like you said, the conversations of what's right, what's wrong. No, apparently everything is right now. It's okay to do this. It's okay to do that. It's okay to do this. You can be this. You can be that. You can do this. You can do that. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's not. And it's if you speak that this is wrong, or this is the right way, or that's the right way, or this is the wrong way, well, you're just an asshole now. You're just, no, I'm not. I'm sorry that I'm telling you what is the truth, and that I'm not afraid to say what's the truth. That's the problem, is people, they don't like hearing the truth, and they don't want to accept the truth. I've got a captain at the firehouse. I remember when this new guy he hired on, and he got sent out to the east side of town, which is where we were at. And he went back to the downtown station, and he told our battalion chief, he said, "Man, please don't send me out east anymore. He's just kind of mean." So he got brought into the office. He said, "Hey, I said, you're kind of being a little bit of an asshole." He goes, "I don't know what you're talking about." He said, "All I require is that you're there and you do your job. I am equally an asshole to everybody." And it's when he says I'm equally an asshole, he's just telling them the truth. He's telling them how he feels. He's upfront. He tells you what he sees. This is what I expect. This is what you're doing. People don't like to hear that. People don't like to hear the truth, and people don't like to hear what other people see or think of them. Well, I don't know what to tell you. That's I would rather you come straight to me and say, "Hey, fuckhead, quit being an idiot." Okay, well, how am I being an idiot? Tell me how I'm being an idiot. If I am indeed being stupid or doing something dumb, well, then we need to address that. Whereas if somebody you come to somebody else and, "Hey, you're being stupid, you're doing something dumb," like, "Oh my God, he's so mean. He told me I'm being stupid." No, I'm telling you that you're being stupid because you're either gonna get somebody hurt, or I'm sorry, you're just stupid. So people don't accept the truth. They don't accept the truth. They don't like being told the truth, and for them, it's people just being assholes, and you're not allowed to do that. Why not?
Yeah, well, I think especially in the fire service, we've got to maintain those standards, and I've seen that, in I've talked about this a lot, even in our unions, in certain, departments across the country, they will oppose fitness standards. Well, you can't, that's not fair. You're trying to get rid of everyone. No, not trying to get rid of anyone. If you found yourself deconditioned, there should be a 1-2 year on-ramp program to get you back to where you were. Absolutely. But if you're offended by being required to physically perform in a job where your people's lives are in your hands, then Yes. You're in the wrong profession. I'm sorry, but this is this is not accounting. And I no disrespect to any accountants out there, but if an accountant screws up, you mess up someone's bank balance, or they pay too much on their taxes. If we screw up, as with your brother, we go in to potentially rescue a little 2-year-old who's about to get burned, and we fuck up, and now he has the life that he has. So, you can't have that hypersensitivity in some of these professions where lives are at stake. You just can't. But you can also, act professionally towards each other and not be a complete a-hole either. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's like you said, it's, you need to be physically able to complete your tasks, and I feel like the fire service needs to, they need to hold them to that standard. You are here to do a physical job and potentially save somebody's life, maybe even your own. How that's not enough motivation alone to keep you in any kind of physical form, I don't know. Because if I know potentially it could be me not coming out of there because of my lack of physical fitness, I'm not okay with that. So I feel like the physical side of things really needs to be upheld.
Absolutely. Well, Eddie, for people listening, you mentioned about the Mustache Mafia site. Where else can they find you online? Instagram is just Eddie Wineland. I think it's still got the blue check mark. I don't know. That's how you got the right one. So between that and my Mustache Mafia page, that's where most of my stuff is posted. Brilliant. Well, I want to thank you so much. It's been such an interesting conversation. I truly feel like of all the sports, MMA probably is the closest replica of the demands of the fire service, just because you can't say, "Oh, I'm going to be running 100 meters in a straight line," or "I'm going to be catching a ball," the diverse. Know. Exactly. So to hear your journey, not only into the martial arts, your brother's tragic story as well, but your service in the fire service, I want to thank you so much for being so generous with your time today.
Absolutely. Anytime, James. I've enjoyed it. Anytime.